Hey guys, welcome back to my world of modeling and welcome back to my workbench. Dan here as always, and in this video we're going to be looking at some more projects I've been working on and just a few updates. The model road is going well. I'm going to have a new upload coming pretty soon covering the progress I've made out there. It's going really well. At this point I pretty much have all the track down and I've just started doing the wiring, so it's going to be a little bit of a bear, but so far I got almost one whole section of the thing done. Because there's a lot of switches to wire, there's a lot of track to do. It's 100 feet of track and then 20 switches total that need wired up, so it's a lot of work, but get there slowly. I might make some videos out there doing some coverage scenery as we get down to it, but right now I'm just working on the heavy lifting, getting that done. And again, I'll have a video coming soon to kind of get you guys updated on what's going on out there. In the meantime, I've also been working on stuff indoors here. And I've gotten a couple gondolas done. I've been rotating out rolling stock like hoppers, boxcars, gondolas, things like that, because I have a large fleet of stuff that just honestly at this point is older. It's time for it, basically time for it to move on, get a different home, and I'm just going in and replacing stuff as I sell it off with brand new stuff that I've basically either had in storage or I've recently gotten through train shows, friends, or eBay. eBay, of course, is always the real bear because you always find stuff on there, even if you don't have the money, and you end up buying stuff. And I have a lot of stuff. I still have entire stashes of cars, so I won't be running out of projects anytime soon. But the big one I wanted to work on was gondolas, because I really lack in a good modern fleet of gondolas that have good quality weathering. I have some that I've done up, but they usually are pretty time consuming, especially doing like warped panels and things like that. So I've dedicated some time to doing a fleet here, and the first ones I'm going to go ahead and basically show you guys are three that I started with, and I started working on these about 2 months ago, and I got them all complete. You guys will recognize the Railgun from the one previous how-to video where I actually modeled a Railgun, detailed it up, and then I also demonstrated the panel weathering and things like that. So this was the first one I did, and we'll brush over this one real quick. Obviously with this car, this is the first Railgun I did, and I actually have 8 of these now that I've done, and I'll show you guys in a minute. But this first one was really a base model to try and use some detailing and see how these really detail up, and I was very satisfied. I was able to make my own coupler lift bars, end sheets, new top cord, added new couplers, air hoses. I added the underbody brake piping according to prototype photos. I added those little plates there at the bottom around the trucks. Did the weathering on the sides, got the Ghost Railgun lettering, the custom DJJ logos, patching, safety striping, lots of heavy rust. And basically with this, I basically did a base effect of acrylic, and then I followed behind with oils, blanched that all out with some thinner, did some fine streaking, a lot of different techniques there, and then followed behind with some powders to create the bulging and scratching effects that you see that are common on these Railguns, and some other gondolas. And of course I made the custom rock load, because the cars I'm modeling are in rock service. These are currently hauling large rocks from the quarries in Cary up east, and then they come back on a return trip, and I believe they're building a landfill somewhere on the CNO, which is the area I'm modeling on my model railroad in Fostoria, Ohio. So that's why I've modeled some of these cars. And again, this one turned out really good, and I'm pretty happy with how it came out. It's one of my favorites. In hindsight, I wish I would have done the styrene panel technique, which I'll demonstrate with some other cars. But other than that, it still turned out good, and I'm still happy with it. And it really closely represents really the prototype I was trying to model, so I'm pretty happy with it. So there's that one. Now these next 3 are interesting. These are all Atlas Thrall gondolas, and with these what I had to do was I added the new sides, and these are the actual styrene sides where I took 0.5-inch styrene, I bulged it out using a dental pick and an X-Acto, and I basically glued them over the existing panel portions. I hand cut each one of these to size to match the specific contour body of these cars, glued them in place, custom painted the car, decaled it, weathered it according to prototype photos, and with these you can see the sides get very beat up. There's lots of scrapes, gouges, and scratches, and I did that with oils and some powders. Lots of scratching effects, some mud splatter, you got some graffiti. I got custom DJJ logos. These were made by Circus City Graphics. I had them custom done. And again, you can see lots of damage on the sides. I got the custom patching done with some Smokebox Graphics decals. And then you've got the chipping, safety striping, heavy weathering on the trucks, lots of mud splatter. And then again, the custom-made rock load, which is real limestone that I just got. I sifted it out and then glued it to a foam base and inserted it into the model. On the ends, not too much I had to do there. I just weathered them up pretty heavily, added the decaling, and then the big thing was I had to remove the metal plate that goes on the ends here, because these cars out of the box from Atlas have the metal guard. I basically removed that from all three of these, and this was the end result. Just tried to closely match what was there on the real prototype cars, and it turned out pretty good. So that's the first one, Csx 396, a very, very nice looking car. The second one is a little bit simpler, a little bit lighter weathering, but again, you can see this one has the real pronounced bulged panels. If you actually look at the sides, you can see they are bulged out, which is completely prototypical. As you look at the car data, you can see how it's warped out. It's an amazing effect you can do, and it's actually quite simple. It does require some disassembly of the car, like I had to remove these ladders and then glue them back in place after, but that was worth it. So again, I just completely custom painted and decaled these after I did the panel trick. I got my custom decals on there, and then heavily weathered the sides with the Csx, acrylics, oils, some basic washes, things like that. Heavy truck weathering, again a custom load. This one's a little bit more sunken in, and then again lots of heavy rust on the interior, lots of scrapes and scratches. Again, on this side it's got the graffiti, the prototype graffiti. I used the actual photo to model that. It's got some interesting weathering. You can see the safety striping is peeling off, which is something I really love to do on these heavily weathered cars. And I'll really just let it speak for itself here. You can see it just looks really nice. It looks very natural, like it's a part of the real world here, like it should be rolling around somewhere. Very, very happy with that one. So that was the second one I did, and the last one is the very, very complex one. So this one took a lot longer. You can see it's got a very heavy rock load. This one's actually spilling over the side, as I've seen some of these, and I've done a really heavy panel bulge and weathering treatment to the sides, lots of scrapes. Again, warped panels. You can see when you look at the logo, you can see it's starting to peel off. Lots and lots of heavy bulging. Lots of oil effects, lots of rust, fresh rust, all kinds of different combinations of weathering effects. And again, there's those really nice looking wheels with the mud splatter. Absolutely gorgeous. And a nice looking close-up. It's literally like you're looking at a real car, isn't it? Beautiful. So the real trick to this one is the sagging. Take a look at this. It doesn't show up as well on this side. If I get on the other side, it'll probably show up a little bit better. Let's see here. There we go. So if you actually look at the center of the car, it sags down. And this is a common thing that you see on these older cars. What happens is they just sag over years of service. And I modeled this by taking two pieces of wood that I cut to size, two long strips that match the size of this car. And then I made basically a jig with two clamps. I inserted two pieces of wood on each end to basically sandwich the two pieces on, and then have some material to clamp on in between where it's supporting it. And then I put a thicker piece of wood that was slightly taller than the top cord out. That way, as I clamped the two pieces of wood together, they would get caught on that larger piece here, effectively pulling the ends up and forcing the bottom down. And then I took this clamp and put it in boiling water for about 20 seconds for a few times, maybe every 20, maybe about a minute worth of time. I would just continually drop this, pull it back up, let it sag, let it set, warm it back up again, let it set, and that was basically the process I used to repeat this. And it worked out really well. You can see it turned out really well, and we have a nice warped gondola. So I'm going to be using this technique quite a little bit more. I've been using it on the Railguns, I'll show in a second, but you can see again the absolute crazy amount of rust. I mean, this thing's beat, but it turned out really good, and I'm very, very satisfied with how that came out. It looks really good, and I'm really happy with it. So that's the three DJJ and DJTX gondolas I got done, and also the DJTX Railgun. Very happy with those. Okay, so these three boxcars here are ones I just got done. I'm also replacing a lot of my older boxcars with better quality ones, and these are all ones that I've had in storage other than this NOKL car, which is Walther's car. This one you'll recognize from my graffiti video. I just did a graffiti video on how I basically did all these effects. I used a multitude of different graffiti effects to do this. I modified the patching on this Athearn car because it wasn't completely accurate out of the box. I wanted to weather a little bit more. Just some white washes down the sides, some of my standard chipping effects, things like that. Safety striping, grime on the underbody, nicely weathered roof, got some little bits of pitting, came out pretty good. And then here's the opposite side with the custom graffiti. So I'm pretty happy with that one. It's a pretty basic, very standard looking modern boxcar, that the kind that you see all over the place on UP, CSX, NS, basically everywhere. So this one came out really good. Again, you can watch the video on YouTube of how I did the graffiti on this if you'd like. It's a couple videos back now. I'll go ahead and set that one aside. This next one here is an Atlas two-door boxcar. This one was pretty fun to do. It's pretty heavily weathered at this point, so I did all the oil weathering on the sides, lots of streaking. I did some pitting. I did the custom painted graffiti, hand-drawn graffiti, added the safety striping and patching, all kinds of cool little effects there. The roof came out pretty good. This is all done with oils, acrylics. I painted the panels in between the roof seams brown, and then did some oil effects and then powders to make it look like fresher rust. So that was a cool little technique. A lot of time in this one doing all the fine effects though, and then I did a little bit of powder work to model fresh rust down the sides too. Lots of grime around the door. I added some little inspection stickers there, custom patching. It's got the little barcodes. This is something you also see on these boxcars. And then on the opposite side, again, some fun looking graffiti, all really nice looking stuff. I'm very happy with it. This one took quite a bit of time to do, but it was worth it in the end. So I have a nice modern car that adds a little bit of flavor, you know, a little bit of variety to your train. So I'm pretty happy with that one. Go ahead and set that aside now. This car is one I thought about selling and decided not to, and ended up fixing it up, and I'm very happy with how it turned out. Story behind this one: this is actually one of the first modern boxcars I ever got, and it was actually purchased by my dad at a train show back in 2007, I believe. With this car, what I did originally was I just did some chalk weathering on it, and I did some really crappy half-ass graffiti. So when it came time to, and I found this one in my storage, I decided I was going to keep it and fix it up. Since it's a, you know, a bit of a special car and it's been in my collection for years, it's now one of my oldest models that I have. I just basically stripped off all the old weathering, scrubbed it all off, and then I proceeded to do some light washes. I faded the entire car body. I did a lot of oil and rust pitting around the door, because on the prototypes these doors get pretty beat up. I did the custom painted graffiti, the custom NOKL patching. You can see I actually spray painted the number back over that graffiti after they did that, so that's a pretty cool effect. Added the safety striping, grime on the doors, on the ends, new data again, and then of course lots of weathering on the underbody. Nicely done roof. Just did a whitewash of oil on that, and then did the rust and grime and everything. Now on the ends, which are my favorite part, I painted the tack boards, I did the safety striping, and then I added the Plano coupler lift bars there. I modified that by installing that on my own custom styrene bracket. I added the KD lower shelf coupler, which is a modified double shelf coupler for tank cars. Just cut the top shelf off, put them on the car, weather them with the model. And then they have the custom made pivoting air hose mechanism that you see on all of these cars. So this one has the realistic details there, and they look pretty good. On this side, I found a picture of a similar car, not the same number, but a similar NOKL boxcar that had this graffiti, and it was really cool. So ended up copying it for this car, complemented it with some other fine tags using some paint pens and things like that, and it turned out pretty good. So that's the NOKL car I got done. I'm really happy with that one as well. Alright, so my project cars of the month are these Railguns, and these are something I'm really proud of, because I've been wanting to make accurate models of CSX style Railguns for a very, very long time. I've made attempts in the past and I've never been as successful, simply because I just didn't have the right techniques to do them at the time, and I was lacking in the ability to detail them properly to actually make them look a lot more realistic. So I used Athearn cars to do these to start with. I used the 50-foot Railgun mill gondola as it's listed by Athearn, and with these cars basically what I had to do was I took and rebodied the entire sides with the styrene 0.5-inch panel sheets, and I also added the new top cord, which is evergreen styrene. I added the end details. I added the new end plates where needed. They vary between different cars. Some of them have these little slots, these little bolt pattern slots, and then others are a solid plate. And then I added the air hoses, which is another important touch for modern realism. And then all of these have the underbody detailing, where I added the brake line, the little brackets, the chain detail, the retainer detail, all that basically to make it look more realistic. And I also added tack boards and then these very, very specific little plates there on the model. That's a very signature part to the Railgun, so I had to make those from scratch on each of these. And as you can see, the first one I actually made is CSXT 708235. And with this car, what I had to do again was I rebodied the sides first, put all the details on, and then I proceeded to repaint most of the black in all the surrounding areas, but the yellow remained untouched for the most part. I didn't really have to modify that from the factory. It's the right yellow. I just had to go back and basically do a hell of a lot of oil rendering, a lot of acrylic work to build up the rust, because these railguns get real beat up. And on the ends, that paint really peels off. And so I had to build up the layers of oil and stuff and cake it on, and then do a lot of oil rendering, lots of brushing and streaking techniques. I got the safety striping on there, some fine tagging, new patchwork, custom microscale decal lettering there to do the stencil style lettering. And then on the sides as we go down, you can see there's a lot of cracks and bulges in the panels where they're starting to split and pull away from the sides, which is pretty cool. Lots of rust pitting, and you can see it really is built up. This one doesn't even have the Railgun lettering anymore. It's basically completely peeled off at this point. It's all basically non-existent, and that's how some of these cars are, depending on how heavily weathered they are. You got the lube stencil there on the end, and then again all the very nice details on the end. Added that plate, and then you got the interesting style Csx lettering there on the end with the stenciling, the patchwork there, and then all the heavy streaking and gouging and everything else in that yellow section. And that is a bear to do. You have to build all that up with washes and then do all the fine brush techniques to do that. But it's worth it in the end, because you can see you get some really decent results. It's very prototypical for these cars. And then to basically complement this, I did a fine steel scrap load to finish it off, and inserted that on there, and it turned out pretty good. And then on this side I did some prototype graffiti. It's got a little bit of splatter and again some fresh rust kind of streaking down, but it's just a combination of oil work, powder work, and things like that blended together. There's that graffiti starting to age up. This side's a little bit more beat up, some fresh rust streaking there. But overall it came out really good. I just followed the prototype photos and it came out pretty much perfect, so I'm pretty happy with that. So that was the first one I did, the 708235, the first one. The second one I did was Csxt 708555. And now this is the more common style that you see from the 90s when they started repatching some of these cars and doing a lot of the data upgrades. So again, pretty much the same technique. I just bulged out the styrene and then put the new panels on the sides. You can see they're completely bulged out. I added the Csx style lettering from a couple different microscale sheets. I did the very heavy graphic weathering there. The safety striping's peeled to hell. Lots of mud splatter and grime on the trucks, and again you can just see the amount of rust. You got some mud caked on the sides, safety stripes pitting, there's a lot of rust streaking. Just look at those details on the underbody. Just a real large variety of work. The plate stencil there is pretty much gone. You got some rust patches, and then again the safety striping is pretty much peeled completely off this thing. It's pretty crazy. And then again there's the ends. You can see the ends on this one are actually bulged out. If you actually look at it, it's bulged out, so it's pretty cool. And then I did the details on the end, and again you got the unique style lettering that's on these. You can see it's pretty cool. It's just yellow stencil lettering. And again there's the details I added to the ends. On this side it's got some cool graffiti. Just used a different photo of a different car to get the graffiti, since I didn't have a photo of this opposite side of the car. And I just replicated it as best as I could, hand painted it, hand drew it, and then weathered over it as I went. Again, there's the Csx lettering. And then on the interior, I did a lot of buildup of paint, caked that up pretty good, did some powder work, some mud streaking, and then this one has a bit of a demolition load or something. In the photo it was this crappy looking material, so I used some fine powdery material that I had on hand for my C&D loads, and just used some fine particles, put that on the base of the car with a little bit of white glue, let it dry up, and it turned out pretty good. So it's pretty convincing for the interior of this car, which is very filthy, as you can see. Now the last one is Csxt 708041, and this one has the complete Railgun lettering, because even the last one doesn't even have the lettering anymore. This one completely has the lettering. So with this one, again, I just rebodied the panels, put all the details on like normal, and then I just re-decaled all the car sides. And then this one has the very heavily weathered panels again, with all the details, all the very heavy rust pitting on the logo itself, lots of damage. You got the very unique Csx patching. I used some glossy acrylic to make it look like it was a relatively fresh stencil style spray lettering that they did. normally how CSX letters their cars. They do it very rushed and very crappy. And you can see the lettering is already starting to peel off, and a lot of that paint's just peeling off in sheets, so you get this random looking effect. And again, as you look down the sides, you can see all those individual little scrapes and scratches. That's something I'm very, very proud of. Pause your video if you need to right now and just take a look to absorb some of this detail, because it's pretty insane. I can't believe I pulled it off, but I'm very happy with that. And then again on the ends, different style of patching. Again, notice all the details, all the rust on the ends in there, lots of scratching and pitting. And then this one has the scrap iron spillage in the interior. It's just a lot of debris left over. And then this has the freshly sprayed car number on the interior, because they always spray these interiors with the number a lot of the time, and that's on both ends, as you can see. And then on the opposite side, pretty much the same. This one doesn't have any graffiti, you know, kept it simple. I chose a prototype specifically that had the old Railgun lettering, that way I could simply display it, just like you see here. So I'm pretty happy with that. Now, again, talking about that clamp weathering style, where I was basically taking these and putting them in a vice grips, and then putting them in boiling water. I did this treatment in different levels on all of these cars, so all of them have a different level of warpage. You can see this one's slightly sagged in the middle, but it's not horrible. But you can see that sagging does exist. It is prevalent on this car. You can see it if you look very closely. And that's a very signature thing with these older cars, man. They all have this sagging. This one, I don't think I did it on as badly. No, there's almost non-existent. This one, let me see here. There's a little bit, but again, it's not very present, but it is there very slightly. So again, I'm very happy with these. These are basically the new standard for my gondola weathering. There's a lot of effects I had to do to pull these off, but in the end it was worth it, and I have 3 very, very convincing looking CSX Railguns, and I have 3 more I'm doing right now, but I'll save those for another video when they're actually completed. Well, one of my videos wouldn't be complete without a cool locomotive project, and I do have one to show for now. It is the Citx 3112. It is the former CEFX Grey Ghost units. These were really common in the 2000s on CSX, and later on they ended up migrating to CP Rail. And they were operated for a while with a bunch of other colorful consists on CP Rail, like in the, I guess the early 20-teens. It would have been like a 2012 era, 2011 era to 2013, 2014 when they really started returning all these. Anyway, this locomotive is just weathered up according to prototype photos. Out of the box, it started as an SP locomotive just like the prototype. I stripped it down, I added all the new details, so it's got the brand new plow, grab irons, couple of lift bars, ditch lights. I got the MU plugs and sockets there. Cool graphic job on the nose. It's got the nose light there. All kinds of weathering on the nose. Added the new vent, grab irons, the roof details like the AC plate there, the antenna, and then the conduit, which runs all the way to the 3-chime horn there on the roof. You have the really nice truck detail. You have exceptional looking brake detail and all that kind of stuff. A lot of heavy grime and stuff on the fuel tank. Really didn't have to do too much there with the fuel tank. Just added the waste retention tank and the piping that was needed. And again, the trucks are just lightly weathered, not too crazy. Lots of rust washes down the side, rusted up the grills because the prototype has really rusty grills. You got a lot of rust coming out of that car body room. Used a combination of Circus City, microscale, and highball graphics decals to do this. It's got the open window on this side, the new sunshade sliding rails there. I added the visor on the back. I added the replacement fan and then these custom made lift rings. You got the SP light package that's been modified and plated up. I added the BLMA covers to the back there. On the end, again, the nice detail. Added the airline MU cables, the ditch lights, stand for that, all the rust and grime and everything else. All looking really good. Really, really nice. And then we get to the opposite side, and pretty much the same. Again, you can see that real nice truck weathering I did there. It's nice and flat, just like the prototypes. I see a lot of people weather their trucks and wheels on their locomotives and cars, and they make them look too shiny. They usually will gloss coat them or something like that. It never looks right. It never really looks right. Really never looks right at all. So what I like to do is just layer that with acrylic, and then I'll go back and I'll apply my powders and chalks to it, and you get this basically this really good flat dull look to your trucks. It's very prototypical. Same thing with your modern railroad wheels. It's a good way to do that. Again, just added the fuel tank piping and things like that. You got some mud splatter there. You got this really cool equipment box, which was already added on the model. All I had to do is paint it with the model. And again, just an exception of nice little details to enhance things. Cool horn detail, cool cab detail overall. And then this side has the speed recorder, and then the truck detail. So overall, I'm really happy with it. This one came out really good. It took a long time to actually get it finished up, but here it is, finally done. And I'm really happy with it. And it's a good runner too. It's one of the newer Atherns, so it's pretty much out of the box a really good runner. It's got the LED lighting, so it's a cool model. So that's going to pretty much wrap up this project video for now, guys. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you like that. I will be getting ready to post another one here pretty soon. Like I said, I got to finish a couple more projects up, but that shouldn't be too much longer. You guys can stay tuned for a update on the layout too. That's also going to be around the corner. Lots of cool material coming down the road here, so stay tuned for that. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.